So I was always very business minded. So the first thing that really helped me in my career in finance was being business minded. I always approach finance with that lens that how can I help business grow, right? So that's the first thing that helped me. Second was always seeing the big picture, and I always felt like, look, if there is an opportunity to make this bigger, can you extrapolate into something which is going to be larger? Can you raise the bar? So always trying to look at that big picture, and often trying to follow that chase. I used to feel very excited from a very early on age, and of course, in my career, to try to solve complex challenges. When most people would want to give it up, I would say, okay, let's try and do it. Right? Maybe there's a way.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Pursuit of Finance Stories Beyond Numbers podcast, where we will take you through experiences much more than what we learn in textbook. We will learn from the real life experiences from the leaders who have successfully navigated the financial landscape. We will learn from the best in the industries and from their stories. Today, I'm very excited to welcome Mr. Rajeev Gupta on board with us. Rajeev is the CFO of L&T Technology Services, and he has experience as a CFO in multiple other organizations like Birla Soft, and he has been there in the industry for more than 26 years. Rajiv has on his credit many awards, including the Best CFO for the Sustainability Award from the Economic Times. Rajiv, we are super excited to have you on board with us. Welcome to our podcast. And along with my co host Tripti, we are really wanting to learn from your stories.
Thank you, Nidhi, and thank you, Tripti, to have me on this platform. Truly appreciate it.
Rajiv, we want to know real you. What's your story? What's your childhood? What motivated you to take the finance career?
Actually, these are interesting questions to answer. So, what really got me to, build a career in finance? See, it was so that during my college, and I passed out my college from Narsi Monji here in Mumbai. I was good in accounting. In my 12th standard, I scored something like 94 out of 100 in my accounting paper.
Wow.
So somewhere, anything to do with accounting, maths. Even today, I like to do mental maths. And while it gives me a thrill to try and solve a maths problem. So that's where the journey started. And even those days, I used to have my friends who were not that academically inclined. They used to reach out to me for helping them in their accounting papers and all. And I used to do my best, right, at that time. So that's where it started. And, one led to the other. I appeared for a chartered accountant's exam. And fortunately for me, I passed out. And then of course the journey was joining the best of the companies, trying to grow with them, trying to learn and take up challenges and try and solve them. So that's where it is. It's simple things that added up.
Yeah, it is amazing. And you have been known for various skills, either it's your technical skills or your leadership skills. I mean, I was amazed to read about you that you have experience not only in India, but also in US and entire Asia Pacific. So, Rajiv, we want to know from you, like, what are, according to you, top 3 to 5 skills which have been really been behind your success over years?
See, I come from a business family, Nidhi and Trupti. In my entire family, we've been doing business for over 100 plus years, right? Of course, it passed from
Yeah.
generation. So I was always very business minded. So the first thing that really helped me in my career in finance was being business minded. I always approach finance with that lens that how can I help business grow, right? So that's the first thing that helped me. Second was always seeing the big picture, and I always felt like, look, if there is an opportunity to make this bigger, can you extrapolate into something which is going to be larger? Can you raise the bar? So always trying to look at that big picture, and often trying to follow that chase. I used to feel very excited from a very early on age, and of course, in my career, to try to solve complex challenges. when most people would want to give it up, I would say, okay, let's try and do it, right? Maybe there's a way to manage it. So seeing that big picture and staying on course with it. The other was, to plan and be proactive. I mean, fortunately, we learned this in our CA, during our
Yeah.
CA examination, that you got to plan so that you're able to pass the examination. Somewhere it stayed with me. Even today, I try to plan ahead and be proactive because it simplifies as opposed to you trying to be anxious towards the last moment of trying to work out something. And last but not the least, convert theory into practice. I feel it's good to be theory oriented, but until you put it to practice, that theory is of no value. To me, I
Yeah.
often found the meaning of theory in practice only, because I'm not someone who would like to read papers and papers about law and accounting and all. When I see a problem, and that's when I see the application of that theory becomes real for me, and that's truly, putting it in practice for me. So these are a few things that fortunately worked out well for me.
Absolutely. I think you made very, very big point. Like sometimes as a finance professional, we try to just limit within finance. But the point about having a big picture, having the understanding of the entire business and, really getting into in depth of that. So Rajiv, you made a very nice points for the readers and you've been known for that with your international experience and your leadership combined with the business understanding. You have done wonders over years. Rajiv, a fun question for you. If you had a superpower with you, what superpower you would choose for yourself, or how will you use it?
Uh, I know it's fun, right? But I must answer this to you. See, strong relationships. I mean, if I had the superpower to build strong relationships, and I would advise all, let's say, budding chartered accountants or who may have reached to a certain level of their career to build very, very strong relationships. They go a long way. And, as time goes by, you will find the power of these relationships coming to fruition. Because it is not about, let's say, you were with a company and you sort of did some good work. It's about who you were with, what was your network. And today that network may have gone to places because a person may have become something in another company. So I feel that if there's any one superpower, it's about building strong relationship, and through that strong relationships, you tend to influence outcomes. You tend to look through a win-win situation for almost everyone. So to me, that superpower is about building strong relationships.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rajiv, for sharing and the importance of relationships in the workplace, right? I mean, emotional intelligence is a concept, and you have led teams which is more than 150, 200 people under you. Without having strong relationship, you could not have done it. So, making an emphasis on that, and for our listeners and viewers, this is a very important power which will take all of us to a much better nation and a world. So, thank you, Rajiv, for sharing that. Rajiv, another question for you. Like, if you go back in your past, is there any significant life experience which you had, which really impacted the way, आप अभी जैसे सोचते हैं, आप अभी ऐसे हैं, या आपका कोई पर्टिकुलर रोल में, करियर में जिसने आपको चेंज किया? Is there any such incidents which you want to share, and आपकी क्या learning रही उससे?
So, SI Nidhi, there was one experience which changed the way I used to think. It was an incurable illness in my early 20s. I battled that illness for almost 7, 8 years. And, every day I used to be completely down and out, right? Because it was an illness that most doctors said is incurable, right? And I was on
Oh.
medication, including steroids. 8 years I battled day in, day out. To me, that changed the way I thought about life, right? I mean, I thought about the fact that, look, those 7, 8 years built my resilience. It also taught me that adversity is the best opportunity in all the deepest and the darkest places that we visit. It is about that opportunity to come back and resurrect yourself. And fortunately, I used that time to really build, the, let's say, the intensity to face any kind of setback. And fortunately, it worked. To date, I am actually very thankful that I can live a healthy life, and I have not been I've not been unwell for more than 20 plus years now. I live a very healthy life. I've sort of found the balance within myself, and I feel that each one of us have to discover that part, because unless you do that, you will never realize what balance of life means. And I also strongly profess that, I mean, dress well, look your best, you get out of your comfort zone, face the world eye to eye. These are all things that I learned during those 7 8 years of my illness to build myself back. And I remain thankful that I am where I am, and I live a very healthy and a peaceful life.
थैंक्स राजीव फॉर शेयरिंग दैट। मतलब आप बहुत रिजिलेंट है। नहीं तो क्या होता है कि जब उस पर्टिकुलर मोमेंट पे वी फील लाइक अगर ऐसा कोई डिसीज है कि इट्स एंड ऑफ लाइफ, वी डोंट नो व्हाट इज गोइंग टू हैपन, एंड फॉर यू कमिंग आउट फ्रॉम दैट एक्सपीरियंस एंड रियली डूइंग very well in your career, and it's really amazing, Rajiv. Hats off to you, and for being so resilient. And I hope all of us, in case ही एडवर्सिटी सबकी लाइफ में आएंगी, बट अगर हम लोग ऐसे रिजिलेंट हो जैसे आपके जैसे एंड लर्न करें उन एडवर्सिटी से, तो आई एम श्योर वो टाइम विल पास थ्रू हो जाएगा। सो थैंक यू राजीव फॉर
Absolutely.
शेयरिंग विद अस। आपने अभी ऑलमोस्ट लास्ट 10 years यू हैव बीन CFO ऑफ मेनी बिग ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस, एंड उससे पहले भी आपने कुछ रोल्स किए हैं, करियर्स किए हैं, डिफरेंट कंपनीज में काम किया है। आपने जब पास्ट में कोई भी नया रोल ऑप्ट किया, आप क्या फैक्टर्स आपने देखे? क्योंकि हमारे व्यूअर्स को ये भी एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है, हम नेक्स्ट क्या करना है उसके लिए क्या क्या हमें देखना चाहिए। आपका क्या इसमें एडवाइस रहेगा, और आपके लिए क्या इसमें बेनिफिट इंपॉर्टेंट फीचर पॉइंट्स रहे हैं इस एरिया में?
सी क्या होता है, निधि एंड तृप्ति, के एज चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट्स many times we get boxed because of the skill sets that we have, which is related to accounting, taxation, audit. And many times business leaders don't realize that they are boxing us. They feel like, okay, he's a chartered accountant, he can do only this or that. Now, often when I looked at opportunities, first of all, I had some amazing opportunity with companies like PricewaterhouseCoopers, and then with Capgemini, right? I spent a decade with Capgemini. I realized, right, that anything that I had to pick up had to be incremental from what I'm doing. I have this philosophy that says if you continue to do what you're doing last year, you're not growing. So you have to challenge yourself, right? And you have to understand that, look, you don't want to get into a comfort zone where you're not learning, you're not growing, you're not contributing. I mean, you have to be constantly looking at that part where you're able to learn something and be able to remain active and remain relevant for the business that you're part of. So every time I looked up an opportunity, it was about the fact that, look, does it really help me to grow in my space? Does it add to more skills as I operate in that role? Is it challenging enough? Because any role that you pick up, right? I can be honest. The first 2 years is like, wow, it's a rock and roll. You're basically going up and down, trying to put things in place. But after that 1 to 2 years of settling down is when you start to add value, and that gives you a lot of satisfaction, saying, okay, you surpassed this. So my only advice to viewers or the listeners, कि हमेशा अपने आप को challenge करो, right? And look at yourself incrementally building. I don't say just jump, from the building, but be incremental. Everything will add up, because when you learn about different skill sets and how to manage situations, you will realize a lot later in life that you dealt with that particular situation, and you will take that situation and then deal with another situation that likely is going to come in future.
Wow, incrementally building. I mean, always learning from the experiences. I think very, very good inputs, Rajiv, from you. आपकी लाइफ में आई एम श्योर मेंटर्स, बॉसेस का बहुत कंट्रीब्यूशन रहा होगा। आपको कोई ऐसे लाइफ एडवाइस मिली किसी से जो आपको बेनिफिट की, करियर एडवाइस इन योर बीइंग सक्सेसफुल ओवर इयर्स?
So, I've been fortunate to work with a lot of good leaders, including amazing leaders at L&T and at L&T Technology Services. I'll just share some advices that I received, during my career. One is, patience has its own rewards, and I truly feel that you don't have to be anxious, or you don't have to be nervous. Sometimes it is about holding well, and the solutions will start to appear. You just have to be patient enough to understand what is going on, and you will start to see the solutions. And it's only during that patience you realize that, look, there are options to play out, there are things that can be done, there are people that you can reach out. So you become a lot more 360 degree when you're patient, as opposed to in anxiety you're basically just troubling people and pushing and creating more stress than required. So I feel that was the best advice I received, which is patience has its own rewards. The other is, don't put all your eggs in one basket. And I cite this because I've realized, right, sometimes you get too emotional about situations, and you're counting on, it's like, if this doesn't happen, it's life or death. I feel if you have the ability to evaluate your options, if you have the ability to think broader, you will always see that, look, you are receiving opportunities that help you grow, that help you also allow others to grow, as opposed to just depending on one single option, saying this is it and I'm going to be always in this. I think it's about that part, which is why I say don't put all your eggs in one basket, right? I mean, for me, this is not only about being, talking about professionally, but also talking personally. It's always good to have options in your hand and be fair, right? Not that you're going to be unfair while you have your options on hand. Be fair and be realistic and be open to say that, look, this doesn't work or that doesn't work for me. Another thing which I did mention, right, you will see opportunities in adversities, because often what happens is, if you start to face challenges and if you play the role of getting into a challenge to solve it, you will find that, look, that mantra will help you lifelong. So these are a few things that some of my leaders, help me inculcate, and fortunately they work well for me.
These are excellent advices. मतलब कभी भी हम लोग टेक्स्ट बुक्स में ये कभी नहीं पढ़े थे. When learning from you on that opportunities in adversity, ये तो मेरे को बहुत स्ट्राइक आउट रहेगा हमेशा के लिए राजीव. Thank you so much. एक और फन क्वेश्चन आपके लिए. If you were a financial document like balance sheet, profit and loss, अगर आप वैसा कोई होते, आप अपने लिए क्या डॉक्यूमेंट चूज करेंगे? What represents you?
I told you, Nidhi, I come from a business family, and we are banyas, right? Basically, living from. So for me, if I were to be a document, I would be a cash flow, right? They say revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, but cash is reality. So cash flow, right? What comes in your hand, or show me the money, as you may have seen in a movie called Jerry Maguire.
Yeah.
So cash flow is a true representation of what is going on.
Yeah, show me the money. That is so true. So now I hand over to my beautiful co-host Tripti for the next set of questions.
Thank you so much. And Rajiv, I when you told about your illness, I could just say that I'm going through the same thing right now, and I could actually feel like I'm going through my breast cancer treatment right now as we are speaking. I think it's very very important, and मुझे लगता है ये एक ऐसा time होता है when you've been running throughout your life, you've been very active, patience, non-patient, dealing with people, but you have finally realized the most important aspect of your life is, and we were discussing about its community, how, and you spoke about building relationship. I think I would like you to share something around it. Finally, what matters? You have gone through something so critical, and then you have been on a different journey where you said balanced and everything. What has been your principles now after that illness? How it changed? What could you say to all the finance people? Because we somehow are on a sitting job on the laptop sometime. We are working, if we are in Big Four, you work with PwC, I work with PwC, Grant Thornton, World Bank. You are still on the screen and you are still on the way working, and you hardly have time. So, what is your suggestion to all the finance people, and how do they manage a quality life and a healthy life as well?
So first of all, Tripti, I hope all works out well for you. Be resilient and be hopeful. Hope does wonders, right? I
Yes.
believe hope is that one thread that divides what can be and cannot be, right? So be hopeful, and I hope all works out well for you. See, you talked about a few things, right? One is about this whole community thing. I'm fortunate. I grew up with a lot of friends, and to date, I consider myself fortunate because those friends were my backbone. And whenever I had those challenges, I could go back and sit with some of them and just think through, saying, okay, what do I do, and what is that I need to think differently about. Yeah. And fortunately, those friends stood up. I mean, to date, these are my childhood friends, or maybe college friends, or some even are from the earlier organizations. So that community feeling was always there, that look, I could go to someone and depend on them. And you have to be realistic, right? You can't be unfair where you just drop dead in front of someone saying, now help me. You need to have some anchor to yourself, right? So I feel building relationships, building a community, being part of a community, a give and take, all this is very important, right? Because this is somewhere where it just ushers you as you go along your work life, personal life, or whatever professional capacity that you work. To me, the other thing is also finding your balance. See, it so happens is that I have burnt myself out working hard, and I'm working like crazy hours, and I've realized it is not going anywhere. We as chartered accountants, I like to think that we are creative, right? I mean, we have a certain creative space here, and you just can't keep cranking it out, right? I mean, I can't just sit all the time and keep cranking out ideas and solutions, right? I mean, you need to have the space to be able to see that what works and does not work. Yeah. For that, you need balance. So you just can't be at work all the time, because it's not going to help you. It's not going to help your family. It's not going to help the ecosystem that you're working in. So it's important that you have the balance. I mean, fortunately for me, alongside my work, I continue to do things like Vipassana that taught me how to understand the temporary aspects of life, right, and not get carried away, because something might just happen and you feel like, oh, this is not working. I'm kind of losing my composure. It just allows you to have that balance. Another thing is believe in yourself, right? I mean, your style, your way of working, what you do, how you do. People will have opinions. They will always have opinions. And if you get too burdened about people's opinion, you will lose who you are. So believe in yourself, stay firm. People will adapt to you, and they will find a way to work around you or with you. One way or the other, you are being yourself. I feel in today's world, when youngsters and with all the social media, it's a little difficult to understand that true self. And I hope, right, youngsters find a way to find that balance of being themselves. So these are a few things that somewhere help me, and I truly feel, that still remains quite relevant for a youngster or anyone for that matter.
So Rajiv, I'll go on a quick roller coaster on few questions specifically. Since you're a chartered accountant, you've done your articleship, you've gone through a hectic hours, you work with PwC, like I said. So lot of time there are two, three questions. One is, why being a chartered accountant, we've seen, although they're so technically qualified everything, but when in the room the MBA makes a better image or is very intellectual, and our CA professions still struggling with that intelligence of interacting presentation. What do you think can be done? What can be the one advice for you from your side to our audience right now?
See, I think couple of things. One, the course is so technically intensive, right? More often than not, you're spending 3 years, and I'm sure the course has evolved over the years. I mean, I passed my chart accountancy in 1996, so I'm sure a lot has changed since then. But then it used to be a very technical one, right? I mean, you were learning tax, accounting, Companies Act, all of the interesting stuff. I think it has to be a fair representation of technical and soft skills. Soft skills meaning leadership, presentation, right? I mean, how do interpersonal skills, all that's very important. And I feel that part is what somewhere is lacking when you see chartered accountants coming off post their qualification and realizing when they're in the real world, what surrounds them is the technicality and not the true representation of what the world needs, which is interpersonal presentation, marketing yourself, right? Fending yourself. being in tough situations and putting up that show. So I may be generalizing because over a period of time it neutralizes. I feel that exposure helps chartered accountants to neutralize that effect, because MBAs, it's a lot about experiential learning as opposed to the technical learning or the textbook learning. It's more on the campus, experiential, trying to do projects. I feel somewhere CA as a course needs to balance this, right? I mean, bring that experiential learning. And also, I think as an institute, they need to bring more and more chartered accountants from the industry to interact with the students, right? To tell them what works and does not work early on. So, some of these thoughts would be.
Truly, so true. I am really happy that you could share that how industry should also be brought for discussion, and maybe we can work a lot on the TMCS side instead with the fixed module we have. I have a follow-up question, and Rajiv, because you're heading technology company, and now we could see there used to be a lot of monotony in the work a CA used to do, vouchers, and now is the time when you have chatbots, things like automizations of processes. We can see from Tally there are new softwares which are doing things. So the pressure on the accounting, specifically audit has been pretty low as compared to before. What is your piece of advice to the chartered accountant today? Do you think just being a CA with no technology knowledge will make them go on in the same way the way you have? Because at that time there was no technology, it was all you doing everything manually and on Excels and all. But now things have changed. What is that you would suggest to our future chartered accountants and finance professional on how they have to mix the finance and technology to be better?
See, to be fair, I mean, in L&T Technology Services, and I give a lot of credit to L&T Technology Services to help me become, um, you know, more acquainted to technology, right? Technology is just not about use of systems and processes. It's about understanding how technology helps in multiple ways. For example, we're a engineering services company, and we have this term called engineer at heart. And when I walk the floors in L&T Technology Services, I mean, I get amazed. I feel like, wow, this should be, what probably could have been my alternate career. I see them, designing semiconductors, designing electric vehicles, designing infotainment car, systems for cars. And I see like, wow, I mean, the angle to technology is so humongous, right? I mean, there's no way you can ignore technology in today's time. So I feel for chartered accountants that look, they have to sort of realize that a lot of the legacy work that used to happen, whether it's audits or whether it is, vouchers and all of this, I mean, it's all passe, because there are technologies today that have completely taken over. I mean, imagine what AI will do. I mean, you don't have to do any of that. So, as chart accountants, I think we need to now start thinking, how do we adopt technology and go far beyond, right? I mean, how do we become more business relevant, right? How do we build that ability to make decisions, right? Take risk. I mean, use technology to solve business problems. And you can do that, right? Because I mean, I was talking to an investor maybe a couple of months ago, and that gentleman very very passionate about AI. He was saying, the best combination of AI will be human and AI. And it's so true, because if you understand how AI works, you'll be able to build solutions for what you do, right? So that's my view. I feel today it's a tremendous opportunity for us as chartered accountants to think technology and look at ways and means. I mean, think blockchain, think a lot of the financial ways in which KYC is happening in an automated way. I mean, a lot of this is kind of gone into another spectrum altogether.
True. So, Rajiv, I would say now today, even the notes of account can be customized on the basis of different countries and their accounting policy through automation. You don't have to really create them. So, I have a humble request to all the audience that if you are a CA and you are thinking that's it, no, it's not. Technology is key. Please go, if you can do a Python course, you can create codes if you're doing some processes where Excel macros you were using, but now is the time when you can code yourself through different platforms. It's easily available. So where you're spending 5 minutes, you can, or 1 hour or 50 hours, you can do the work in 10 minutes. So let's focus and let's try to use, like Rajiv said, use business intelligence, be the decision maker than just doing things. Raji, my quick question now from you is, what movie or book inspired you? And did you learn, would you like to share any book or a movie which really inspired and what you could learn from there?
There's an amazing book that I picked up maybe in my 20s, right? Which is The Power of Subconscious Mind. I don't know if any one of you have read it. It's by this gentleman, Joseph Murphy. I would recommend everyone to read it, right? I mean, it's understanding the humongous power that a subconscious mind has. You basically are, it's like you're seeing it before it really happens. The positive reaffirmations, I mean, how you use that power to just extend yourself. So that's a book that influenced me. It also helped me to think beyond, right? Rather than curtailing myself to do what I used to or what I thought I could, it just unleashed that potential in me. So that's a book that influenced me significantly. To me, another, while I will not call it a book, but I feel it's important, and at any juncture, you might get to a spiritual side of you, which is reading Bhagavad Gita. Sometimes things just go beyond you and you can't relate to why it's happening, and that's when you read this and you realize that, look, there are certain principles, and if you're able to work along those principles, it helps you tremendously. These are two, like I said, Bhagavad Gita is not a book, but for me, both these influence significantly, and it just became a way of life, right? And I kind of built from there on. I don't think I have all the right ideologies, but at least I have the will to move in the right direction.
So I have a follow-up question on Bhagavad Gita related, because we've just spoken about it, Rajiv. Bhagavad Gita में बोला गया कि अर्जुन ने कृष्ण भगवान को जब अपना चालक बनाया और उनके ऊपर डिपेंड किए, तो उन्होंने अपना सारा कुछ उनके ऊपर, वो कुछ एक्शन लेंगे तो जो कृष्ण बोलेंगे उसके हिसाब से लेंगे, राइट? सो आई वुड लाइक यू टू शेयर विद अस पीपल हु हैव रियली contributed, if you can call out their names, and your life changed and you've blindly, because today's world, what is happening, Rajiv, is that like we change clothes, we change mentors and coach. We feel, अरे राजीव से मिले थे, काम हुआ, ठीक है, नहीं हुआ तो let's move on to Nidhi, let's move on to Tripti. But like भागवत गीता, अर्जुन ने सबको छोड़ के सिर्फ कृष्ण भगवान को माना था और उसी को आगे फॉलो किया था blindly. Then he didn't question anything. Who have been your chalaks, who have been your contributors in your life, and I really want to thank them. So if you can call out their names and share a few of them.
So quite a few. I mean, I'll try my best. Maybe I'll pick one or two. So one is my mother. Influenced me greatly. I mean, she took Diksha some 30 years ago. Maybe I was in my early 20s and I could not understand why she was doing what she was doing. But, and I could see her change. And to date, I kind of realized that why she chose that path. She's a great influence on me. Even today, when I were to, I mean, if I were to talk to her, I will realize that, look, it just helps me to simplify things. Along my career, I've met leaders that amazed me, right? I mean, their vision, their ability to think from the past of something they may have dealt as a situation and extrapolate to a current situation. um, they have just amazed me, and I could never think the way they would have probably thought, right? I mean, um, while I may reserve sharing the names because some of them may be leading large companies, so if you don't mind, I will not share names, but they are from my previous companies and I remain to date. It's like you emulate, right? I mean, if that leader was there with you, what would he or she be thinking? So you said a right thing, Tripti, right? Today you may go to a Tripti, you may go to a Nidhi. So long as a problem is solved, I think done and dusted, and you move on. But to me, that leaving with a positive feel, that leaving with a feel that you can be trusted and you can trust, right? That feeling that look, you would want to build a relation. These are all very important things, because you don't conduct business with computers, you don't conduct business with pens, you don't conduct business with cars, you conduct business with humans. And if you can't learn to trust humans, I mean, how will you conduct business? And that's a difference that actually I've learned with people that have been mentors with me, that look, it's very often easy for you to sit down and have a chat. I mean, if things are getting complicated, you can't do much about it. You have to learn to accept, like they say, God give me the strength to accept what I can't change and to change what I have the will for, right? So that's what you
Right.
learn, right? So these are some of my thoughts there, Tripti.
Right. So, Rajiv, if you have to go back in time when you were 10 years or 15 years old, making decision to become a chartered accountant, if you have to go back, would you change your profession, or would you like to, say something to your the younger self, which you think would have changed things for you?
So if I were to go back and say something to my younger self, it would be about take much bigger risk, much bigger risk. Um because if you fail fast, you learn fast, and that's true. I have seen that myself. I've been in situations I've completely messed it up, but in that mess up, I learned and I could realize that I also had the power to solve it. So that would be one thing. Early on, you have the ability to take risk. The fear levels are a lot lower. As you grow in age, fear sets in, it builds in, you get attached to certain situations. When you're young, you're bold, you're audacious. You got to do all of that, and you've got to do much more of that. I think I also feel that look, the India of maybe the 90s and the India of today is very different. It offers amazing opportunity to youngsters, and I wish I was in the India of today, because it's a lot more bolder for the younger generation compared to us in the 90s, where we were not given an equal platform when we went on to do things globally, right? We still had to earn our respect and credibility. Today it's given. I mean, wherever you walk in a global situation, either you'll find an Indian leader or someone as an Indian sitting in
True.
that team.
Right, Rajiv. I think I'm really happy that you spoke about risk appetite. I mean, the biggest problem I see today in the new generation, there are people who want to really jump on and want to start. That's a other talent. But when it comes to CA, the kind of risk you can take and do things differently in different fields, I would request everyone listening to hear, guys, as chartered accountant, not just auditing, it's not just tax. There are so many other things. It's ESG. Rajiv, we were discussing about how L&T is contributing on the ESG, on the gender diversity, and your program, which you spoke about on the engineering side, to create leaders, and brand ambassador, which you guys are doing such a great job creating leadership. And I think on gender diversity, you are already committed to increase the percentage of women in your engineering department, which you've been doing and dedicatedly working on. I would just simply say that even something, a thought process of going on ESG consultancy, I mean, these are the kind of risk appetites which our accountants should think about and take it forward. With this, my last question for the day and with you, Rajiv, is imagine that you're asked to go right now to a jungle, and you're asked just to take two things with you. What will be those two things?
I think I'll take my yoga mat, and I think I'll take my trekking shoes. I love to trek and I love to do yoga. So those are the two things I need, and I think I can sustain.
Wow, okay. I hope you sustain with all the lions and the tigers. वैसे है नहीं इंडिया में, but you're right. Yoga would definitely help. With this, thank you so much, Rajiv, and my co-host Nidhi, and thank you to all our listeners for tuning into another episode of Pursuit of Finance Stories Beyond Numbers. Join us next time as we continue to explore the diverse and exciting world of finance career. Until then, keep learning and stay inspired.
Thank you.